Bonjour, welcome. My name is Ramiro Vazquez, and I'm a youth worker, organizer, based here in Minneapolis, also known as Occupied Dakota and Lakota Territory, supporting all our indigenous relatives out there today and always. My role here is Youth Program Manager at Climate Generation for the Youth Environmental Activist Network, which is comprised of 10 young people and a network of young people who support climate movement here in Minneapolis. Today, I am going to sit down and have a conversation with a good friend of mine, comrade, and a mutual youth worker organizer here in Minneapolis. We're going to speak about our shared paths, what it means to support young people in the capacity that we do, and also speak about how we organize for real change and how young people work in partnership with us doing it. Please feel free to listen to our guest here who's going to introduce himself.
Thank you for having me. Marc Woods here. Currently, I am a 6th grade health and PE teacher, formerly outreach lead. We did in-school outreach as well as outside outreach downtown in Minneapolis and North Side. Coach, Beacons, culture teacher, Black community student leader, and other things. So it is a pleasure to be here with you.
That's great. Thank you, Marc, for your presence and for your peace of mind. Looking forward to your reflection. Before we do hop into this dialogue/conversation that you all are all going to listen to as we speak, I want to speak about how we came into this work during this conversation, what it means to be a part of youth organizing lineage, seeing as we have similar mentors, similar backgrounds, organizations, and work that are in alignment. And most importantly, I feel like we could touch upon this question while we're here and share some deep insights as to why youth leadership program matters more than ever in this current climate that we're in, both politically and day to day. So Marc, thank you for sitting here. We're gonna hop right into these questions within our roots of organizing, and this first question is a two-part. Feel free to take your time as you answer this, but I do want to know what brought you to organizing and what inspired you to start organizing.
That is a great question. It actually comes with a story. My mother was a youth psychologist in our church, and she did a lot of programming. The church program was a specifically futuristic model where we incorporated youth voice and allowed young people to really take over and drive their own ideology and practice through leadership. We had a camp that we went to every year where we took a lot of inner city kids into the middle of nature, nowhere to focus on our beliefs, to really build community and spend time. And during that time, as I was doing it, I was looked at as an elder, even though I was the same age as a lot of campers. One of our older leaders told me that I had to move different because how people seen me gave them permission to move a certain way. And I didn't believe them. But what I did was a little experiment. I actually kind of messed my clothes up. I pulled my pants all the way up to as far as to my chest as I can get them, tucked my shirt in, wore my shoes on the wrong feet. I just did something stupid to almost embarrass myself. And by the end of the day, I looked around and I realized that there were at least 10 other campers following my lead. And I went back to that elder and I just told him, like, all right, man, you got me. If I got the juice, if I have influence, I have to hold myself accountable and set them up for success. And that opened the door for not only leadership, but for mentorship. It continued when I started working at Northeast Middle School. I went to Northeast Middle as a security person for the after-school program. Students who got in trouble, they didn't really have a space for them. And so my coordinator at the time asked if I would house those students who were in trouble. And I said, that's fine. They ended up sticking with me to the point where they would get in trouble on purpose just to come with me. And we were like, we're not going to make you get in trouble. And so they just gave me my first class. That class was called Tutor in Sports, where I helped the students with their homework for a good half an hour. And then we went to the gym and played basketball, football, or other activities. And snowball effect, it kind of, as I built my skills, it allowed me to open more doors for other young people. I then moved into the AVID world, where I was tutoring. I felt really strongly about being a male of color within school and in an educational role where it wasn't the shut up and dribble narrative where it was like you're just playing sports. And so to really be strong on community, be strong on self-identity, culture, all of these things that young people were discovering, that's really what inspired me to continue to be around young people, as well as youth are learning, and so they don't really have boundaries, and that limitless potential of conversation, whether it's right or wrong, the construct was to communicate and to really understand one another. And so that is what drove me to stay around young people, where I see adults, they often rage quit or get frustrated, and there are things in our lives that we have to deal with, but a lot of adults avoid, whereas young people will have that conversation and are more likely to create an understanding and move forward. And so those became my people. And to this day, I'm still finding ways that I can grow. And the minute that I'm able to grow and be intentional about that growth, it allows me to pass it on as the young people grow.
That's great, Mark. A lot of history you just shared with us right there from the Beacon program years, which from what I know is still going strong to this day across multiple communities and even in high schools now. I do want to point out one specific part of your feedback reflection that stood out to me that I can relate to is the mentor part. You know, the adults in our life that we often find when we're least expecting it, and oftentimes give us insights that we did not consider prior to that conversation. And I would say that's where I fit into your story as well, with adults, you know, presenting opportunities to me that I oftentimes never thought about. You know what I'm saying? When you are an active person, when you are active as a young person, and sometimes they call that leadership qualities, you know what I'm saying? We're fortunate enough to have those adults who give us that guidance, you know, and those opportunities that previously weren't present or even thought about, you know, within our young minds that aren't fully developed. Young people, their minds don't develop till 25, they say, you know, so that guidance, and I call it a positive youth adult partnership as well, mentorship, mutual mentorship within those spaces. But that's great feedback regarding your time. I think that was 20 years. You kind of broke down right there of youth work. at least.
This is year 19 of working in Minneapolis public schools, and I have done work since I want to say 16 at least. I mean, I won't count babysitting or just in the community and being a youth, but 20 years is a good round number.
No, it is, you know, the more you say it, the longer it seems, but it's actually a short period in the big scheme of things.
Absolutely.
I feel like, so thank you for that answer there. We're going to move on to our next question, which is, what campaigns have you been involved in, with young people, actions and or leadership opportunities? Where have you helped them organize in their lives?
In schools, I have supported young people with creating clubs. The Beacons organization has been a very heavily supporting one that allows young people to create safe spaces and put boundaries and guidelines on what the space is to be utilized for. And so young people have, again, created the Black Student Union, which is a culture club. We put on the Black History Month showcase every year at Edison High School. That was through YMCA Beacons. I have helped with the Dairy Queen Knowledge Bowl. We had debate teams. Matter of fact, Ramiro, you and I at South High helped the students who were attempting to protest we helped them organize and create a walkout and walked out with them to make sure and ensure safety. I do not specifically remember what that protest was about, but we did the Deshaun Hill walkout during the staff and student strike after COVID. We have been a part of even street organizing after Jamar Clark and other losses the city has had. George Floyd, we've been on the street, literal boots on the ground throughout pre-existing problems, which has allowed us to really support and get people organized. During these times, there's always or often a lot of trauma and a lot of energy that's moving. And so to just be involved has allowed us to help people gather their thoughts. I think what I'm struggling with, to be specific, is the term campaign. There's a lot of things that I would identify as a campaign, but really just no matter what the movement was, whether it be, I know our students were big on the Me Too movement. I know we had the Rethink Your Drink campaign with the health department. There are so many things that young people have been a part of. The Change the Name movement, changing Patrick Henry to what is now Camden. R.I.P. Janan, who was one of the students who pushed that and supported. It's finally come to fruition. So there are many things that we have pushed, helped with, and really just been a privilege to witness, because it all starts from manifestation of thought. And then once we put it on paper and add a plan, there's been so much cultivated that it's hard to really limit that answer.
Absolutely. And I also think about the work we did around teen job fairs. If you recall, over a couple hundred students arriving per year for in-person interviews, on the job resume building. And to your point, it does expand beyond campaigns, which can sometimes revolve around the political or socioeconomic, whatever they may be. But I think we truly do work with young people and helping them with whatever it may be in their life, which I think we even did clothing swaps at one point. We've helped out a lot with funding. So student leaders have assisted with not only accepting applications, but following up with applicants who received that funding to assure that the programming is as it says via the application. And I think campaigns is a much broader. It's more so about supporting young people in there.
Absolutely.
And their
we went down to even book clubs where it's went from a question or even argument to support research and give students something to reflect on, and really just, again, widen the spectrum. It's not about limiting their ideas. It's more so about supporting what they want to do and allowing them to narrow it down to be specific to get the results that they desire.
Absolutely, which I feel like there's a lot of results within our tenure of youth development.
I was gonna say it's helped me be more intentional about my growth and what I want out of my own life, and that has been even more powerful, because now we can use ourselves as the example and say, well, I was here. It deads things like imposter syndrome. It deads things like limited thinking. It doesn't put a cap on you when you can actually have tangible proof of concept. And then again, to do it multiple times repeatedly, it's showing that you can master it as a skill.
Absolutely. Anything is possible with effort and time and intentionality. You've shared a lot about what brought you to organizing, what has inspired you. It seems young people, community are a part of your passions, and they're the way they want to move throughout this world. You help them, and you help guide them as a mentor, as a friend. As sometimes we play familiar roles for them too, as a brother or uncle. Absolutely. because we support them. You've also mentioned campaigns, leadership opportunities, and overall just support of young people. Young people meaning, I think you mentioned from middle school all the way until college age. So my final question for you, Mark, to kind of tie this all together, is as you reflect upon that, these opportunities, these organizations, these versions of yourself that you've seen grow and you've learned from, what does youth autonomy mean to you as you work with these young people and community? How do you hold that within your value system or with you as you organize?
Autonomy is extremely important to me. Autonomy is ownership. Autonomy is the ability to create your own identity. It is to embrace all of yourself, your duality, your good side, your bad side, your intrusive thoughts. Holding autonomy also brings responsibility. Within a community or a system of paradigm that we live in, it's often mentally a struggle to feel like you have no control over anything that happens around you. It even adds to it when we live in a system that talks about democracy and says that we actually do have power with the lack of evidence of said power. And so really being able to create your own lane, if you will, or your own space, and then have your own measurements of success, because we've kind of shrunk the identity of success. I believe that there are some people who, if you are an engineer, you don't have to drive a fancy car or wear jewelry or be popular. Right. But that's what we praise nowadays. And so that person can be highly successful if all they want to do is build a family and live, maybe not in luxury, but be able to be in comfort. And so allowing people the autonomy to say, here's what this means to me, and then embrace that and have other people support that ideology is so important. But it's also about power. We were talking about power today with some colleagues, and we talked about the construct of racism, where a lot of people are using the term racism incorrectly due to the fact of the individual was powerless. The construct of power is what creates racism, where the lack of power just means prejudice. On an individual basis, as humans, we're all prejudiced for safety reasons. I think adding that power of autonomy allows us to, again, kind of separate and really take not only ownership, but again, responsibility. It's the other side of that coin, where now it's my responsibility to make sure this space is safe. It's my responsibility to make sure people enjoy themselves. It's my responsibility to plan. It's my responsibility to uphold. It becomes more communal, where if something is not going, you can remove it. Whereas in a school that you don't have autonomy over, you might not like the kid sitting next to you, but all we say is life's not fair, you have to deal with it. And so to have that balance of public space and public safety, but also that ownership piece of this is my space and this is where I find refuge, this is where I'm comfortable. Those spaces allow us to practice our tolerance of outside and negative forces and really kind of just hone in our own energy so that we can be the best versions of ourselves in those public spaces. And so it's a compound thing to have autonomy. I think that we need more of it, even in economics. When we all spend all of our money at Target or Walmart, we send our money to one space, and then that money drives decision making. But if we all had mom and pop shops, our money would stay in our communities longer. And so on a simple example of that, we can then dictate our pricing, we can then dictate our trade, we can dictate what a value of a dollar is in our community. There are so many different aspects to this that play a role, but I believe that there are no negatives in people having autonomy outside of control. And I think that drives us into a conversation about power, which I won't get into. I won't say if power is good or bad, but when people don't have power, it makes me think, do you want dictatorship where you are leading weak people, or do you want camaraderie where you are leading strong people, where it's a choice, where people aren't made to come together, where it's like an all-star team? And so for me, I would much rather have that all-star team who's strong by themselves and we come together to create a powerful force than try to mandate people just do what I say because I want things my way. And so I really do support the autonomy, but it needs to be taught. It can't be implied. And I think that's where the support of youth work becomes so important.
Absolutely, Mark. Young people should have the ability to be autonomous within spaces they're in, and I feel like what you shared, a lot of time young people are viewed of in a space of a classroom, but there is a multitude of spaces you could learn as a young person, which is, they call it outside learning or after school learning, which is where we come in, but there's also sports. There's multitude of opportunities for these young people to develop autonomy outside of a classroom space. And when I say classroom space, I sometimes reflect upon like the adultism aspects that students face in institutions, ranging from middle school, elementary, middle school to high school. So how are organizers or youth workers like ourselves bringing the language of autonomy to these young people so that they're able to produce their own meaning or definition within their worlds, but also mentoring them in that way, because autonomy to me is very sacred. As an indigenous person, I want to be autonomous to my decisions, and I believe young people should have the same autonomy to say yes or no to a decision, a project, or something they do or don't want to do. That's very important for me as a human, and now as an adult to hold that. And within our organization, Youth Environmental Activist Network, youth autonomy is within the pillars of our program. So we teach our students what autonomy is, and then it's up to them to seek out that autonomy within the program, where if you do that within a youth program, eventually they start taking ownership. And it's not because you tell them to take ownership, it's because they feel like they are a part of that larger community. Even though we are individuals, they feel empowered to be an individual that's a part of a larger community, because we're going to disagree. Not everyone is, but it's about how we come back as a group and understand each other. So I believe that autonomy is important too, which you touched upon, Mark.
The thing that I wanted to add is the lack of autonomy creates communal punishment. Power exchange. So if my classroom is my classroom, but I'm sharing it with the young people because it's for you, the exchange of power then becomes their lunchtime. So when I am on break during lunch, but I choose to go with them and they embrace me and welcome me to their games or welcome me to their lunch tables, it's that exchange of power that I think becomes so meaningful and impactful. And so that is definitely an indigenous status. It's a need, not only a desire, but to me that's a mandated thing, is to have autonomy, just due to, like you said, if I'm not a part of the decision, why am I getting the punishment? And so to be able to separate that freedom is priceless.
Absolutely, Mark. Our last and final question. We've heard you share a little bit about the work you've formerly done. Could we hear about the work you're currently doing, and any plugs to projects or programs or anybody that we could shout out during this segment would be wonderful.
Absolutely. One of the things that I have been working on is my own LLC, Youth 24. I've just created that. I want a lot of the experiences that I have with young people to be able to be documented so that it can be replicated. There is only one of me, but what I do, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I believe that we need more of it. And so the young people that I mentor or have witnessed grow up, I encourage them to take the ideology, take the morals, the principles, and put their own spin on it. And Youth 24 is what I want to do that under, to provide more opportunity so that I have autonomy and am not having to ask somebody else for permission to give young people an opportunity. Followed by, I just created a group nonprofit called Independent Paths. The purpose of Independent Paths is just that, is to uphold people in their own independent growth, but also understand how their piece to the puzzle still has an impact on the bigger picture. And so to embrace people and give them kind of a campfire to always come back to or get support from, creating your own network, but also allowing you to go your own way and widen the net. Those are the two things that I'm working on right now. We got Art of World coming up. A lot of the things that are coming are expressive. We have summer coming up. Shout out to Coach IB, Hard in the Paint Hoops. He has a lot of basketball camps, free basketball camps, lunch included, during the summer to keep kids active, keep their mentor strong, and be mentored in life and financial literacy through the game of basketball. Coach Byron Hawkins, TKO Drumline, another great opportunity for young people to be in drumline and dance. They've performed at T-Wolves games and just, again, doing things through the arts of music. And so those are some of the things that I'm proud of. I'm looking forward to seeing the growth. And again, it's all about creating a path so that you can hand it down or show people the way and inspire others.
Thank you for those closing words, your time, your story, and some of the current work you're doing. For those listeners, look for the links and please support, engage with Marc here and some of the great stuff that he's engaged in. Thank you all, and look for the next episode of Reflections as You